Hi guys, John Carswell from Cadzo Parish Church. I want to tell you about an awful little book in the Bible, totally depressing, but one that I like reading anyway because it's like reading about someone else's train wreck. It's a book called Lamentations, and it follows immediately from the work of the prophet Jeremiah. Now, if you've ever read Jeremiah, you'll know that it's a book that warns about God's coming judgment. And it tells the people in explicit terms that it's time to get right with God. It's time to turn away from your sinful practices. It's time to clean the slate. Now, just as we do, they ignored those warnings, and sure enough, the day of judgment did eventually come. And it came in the form of the Babylonians who swept down from the north and laid siege to Jerusalem and eventually knocked down its walls, murdered hundreds, maybe thousands of people, destroyed the city, knocked down all the buildings, set things on fire, and then took the rest of the people and packed them off to Babylon, where they spent the next 70 years in isolation. And Lamentations is a 5-chapter book, a really short one, that is a reflection on those events. It's like someone arriving on the scene after destruction and trying to find words for the feelings that they have. Now, Lamentations is an extended lament. Now, that's a technical word from the Bible, and a lament is a heart cry. It's a keening, it's a moaning, it's an inarticulate, almost animal cry that comes out of someone who's experienced the most heart-rending loss, a loss that's so severe there's almost no words for it at all. And Lamentations is an expression not only of the individual's grief, but it's also a book that is used liturgically to describe the grief of the people of Israel. Now, last night, as some of you know, the Prime Minister spoke to the nation of Britain and said what we knew he was going to say, which was stay at home. The time has come. He didn't use the word lockdown, but we all know what it meant. Stay at home. Now, this was, of course, an effort to stave off the spread of the coronavirus. And hopefully it will reduce the spread and limit the surge of people that may end up coming into the hospitals and crippling the NHS. And so it's an effort to prevent that from happening and to prevent Britain going down the road that Italy has, and potentially Spain, and potentially many other nations who are like us, staring at this coming coronavirus as if it were a towering wave or an oncoming army, a Babylonian horde bringing destruction. Now, thankfully, we're not there yet in Britain, and hopefully if we do all stay at home, then we can prevent reaching a point where lamentation is going to be something that we'll all need to think about. Now, I'm not one of those guys who immediately points to these sorts of things and says, aha, there's the judgment of God. We deserve this, which usually means you deserve this. And I'm not ready to go there because God's judgment is always accompanied with God's mercy. Now, as I said, Lamentations is not an easy book to read. It's pretty hard going, and if you want to have a look at it, sure, do that, but maybe only one chapter today because you don't want to get your mind blown with it. But why I love it, and there's many reasons that I love this little book, is that right in the middle of it, there's a verse in chapter 3 that seems to form a hinge for the whole book. And there's in that chapter a word of promise that seems to be out of place with the lament that is on both sides of it. And I just want to read you that verse. It's from chapter 3 and verse 23. And it goes like this. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies are new every morning. His mercies never cease. Now you read that in the midst of this destruction and you think, how does that fit together? Well, a lament is a heart cry, as I said, but it's also a complaint. It's also a complaint that's saying, basically, things are not supposed to be this way. You're supposed to fix things. This is not what we bargained for. This judgment that seems out of place with all of the kindness and the mercy that we've had before this. And how can this happen? And a lament is a complaint to God. It's saying, you need to fix this. Now, some people might look at the destruction of Jerusalem and say, right, I've had enough of God. I'm turning away. God doesn't exist. Why do bad things happen to good people? Which are all good questions. But that's not what a lament is. A lament is a going deeper in your relationship with God. It's a getting real with God and saying, hey, this is not fair. This is not how things are supposed to be. A lament is a crying out to God. It's a calling on God to remember those promises of steadfast love and mercy. Now, as I said, we haven't gotten there yet here in Britain, and I hope to God that we never do. And hopefully, if we all stay at home, we can prevent that happening. But God's mercies are still new every morning, and even in the midst of this crisis, there's things that just make you stop and go, "Wow." And I could tell you several of those things, but I got a text the other day from a friend of mine, and I wanted to read it to you. It's from a fellow named Brother Richard Hendrick, and he is a Capuchin Franciscan monk, and he said these words last week on the 13th of March. And I won't read the whole thing, it's pretty long, but I think you'll get the gist of it. He writes, yes, there is fear. Yes, there is isolation. Yes, there is panic buying. Yes, there is sickness. Yes, there is even death. But they say that in Wuhan, after so many years of noise, you can hear the birds again. They say that after just a few weeks of quiet, the sky is no longer thick with fumes, but blue and gray and clear. They say that in the streets of Assisi, people are singing to each other across the empty squares, keeping their windows open so that those who are alone may hear the sounds of family around them. All over the world, people are waking up to a new reality, to how big we really are, to how little control we really have, and to what really matters, to love. So today, breathe. Listen behind the factory noises of your panic. The birds are singing again. The sky is clearing. The spring is coming, and we are always encompassed by love. Open the windows of your soul, and though you may not be able to touch across the empty square, and sing. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. See you next time. Be sure to like and subscribe, tick that notification bell, and I'll look for you again soon.